Welcome to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, your ultimate ride into the world of motorcycles. Visit cyclesworldwide.com where we offer a completely free marketplace for everything motorcycles. Join our One Gang community where you can connect, share info, and swap stories with riders from all over the world. Join for free at cyclesworldwide.com and be a part of the One Gang community right now.
From ripping dirt tracks to flying through the air on two wheels, Clint Esposito has lived life at full throttle. A pro motocross racer turned FMX daredevil turned Harley Davidson stuntman turned comedian and podcaster. Now he's here to talk about his journey on the untold stories from the world of freestyle motocross. Buckle up, this one's going to be a ride.
So we walk out of the stadium, and as we're walking out of the stadium, one of the ladies taking tickets, there's this big long line of people standing there. And there's a lady standing there taking tickets, and she starts screaming something. And I turned to our manager guy that spoke Spanish, and I go, "What is she saying?" He goes, "She's yelling fraud," and pointing at us because we're just walking out.
Hey, One Gang, if you enjoy the podcast, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can turn notifications on to hear when new episodes are dropped, too. Any of your engagement supports the show and helps us book great guests and keeps us going. If you or a friend would make a great guest, hit us up at cyclesworldwide.com or drop a comment. Thank you guys so much.
One Gang Worldwide podcast, brought to you by Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping. Since 1978, Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping has been the trusted name in transporting motorcycles safely across the country. With custom designed pallets and air ride trailers, your bike is secure and protected every step of the way. By choosing Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping, you're supporting a dedicated small business that prioritizes quality and customer satisfaction. Ship with a peace of mind, knowing your motorcycle is in expert hands.
Please visit shippingmymotorcycle.com. That's shippingmymotorcycle.com. And now, back to our show.
Hey, One Gang, today we've got a Renaissance man, a man of many hats, Clint Esposito, in his own words, ex-professional freestyle motocross rider, founder of FMX East, motorcycle stunts, comedian, producer, snowboarder, and podcaster, just trying to have the most fun. I thought that was too good not to share it. Thanks for joining us today, Clint.
Thank you guys for having me on. Yeah, loosely snowboarding. But
but many hats regardless. So all right, let's start out with the first hat, man. Let's, like we do most podcasts, kind of dig in a little bit about where'd you grow up? What were you like as a kid?
I grew up in New Jersey, northern New Jersey, so I don't live off of the turnpike. I don't live on one of those exits, which is always
Which exit? Yeah,
exactly the question. We're basically, I'm almost to the Pennsylvania border, and I think I was probably like just a real boy kid, you know. My mom always likes to tell me I used to wear camouflage a lot in like elementary school, and one of the teachers brought her in and told her I was too much of a macho boy. And
Macho boy, that's so funny. So were you kind of daredevilish type macho boy, or were you kind of a little more chilled? What were you like, getting in trouble, doing crazy stuff, bikes, BMXs, stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't really get in trouble. I more so kind of, I guess, figured out to channel everything through sports.
Yeah.
So I, played soccer, I played hockey, I wrestled, I played football.
With a last name like Esposito, you better be playing hockey, man.
That's right. I actually have a Phil Esposito Rangers jersey upstairs.
Nice,
so.
Nice. That's cool, man.
So, I think I kind of channeled a lot of things through playing sports and let, my, energy out that way. So I guess that probably kept me out of trouble. I then got into, bicycles when I was 8. I got my first bicycle, and then that led to basically digging up my parents' backyard and making jumps in the backyard, especially as soon as summer was over and the garden was gone. I would then stack all the garden dirt up and start jumping it until next spring.
That's cool. That's cool. Hey, I read somewhere your dad worked at a Harley shop when you were still a young kid, right?
Yes, sir. So do you know Morris Magnetos?
Oh, yeah.
That's where he worked. My first job was actually sweeping the floors and stuff in the shop.
How old are you at this point?
Probably like 13.
Okay.
And then I got a little bit older, and so when I started riding, my dad was basically like, even the bicycle that we got, he found it. He was hunting across the street from the house and found it in the swamp. So then he took it to the police and was like, we got to leave it there, see if anybody reports it stolen or missing or whatever. We waited that out. Then when we got it back, I still wasn't allowed to ride it. We had to strip the whole thing down, re-grease all the bearings, strip all the paint down. We taped over all the stickers and stuff, repaint the frame. So my dad made me like totally refurbish this bicycle before I could ride it. And that was basically any bike I had after that. He's like, you're riding it, you're going to have to fix it. So I was forced into mechanical stuff right off of the bat.
That's cool, man. That's cool. What was he? Is that kind of like where the passion came from, as far as the motorcycle side of it?
So ironically enough, he had stopped. He had two Harleys that were in our garage, which actually one he gave to me. It's a 68 Sportster XLCH.
Yep.
Basically all original. He swapped the seat out because he didn't like the original white seat, which he still has. But he actually, when I was born, I'm the youngest of two. When I was born, he just stopped riding because he didn't want something to happen to him and to not be able to take care of us. So I actually was never around him riding. There were just motorcycles in the garage, but they never were touched. So it's kind of weird that I chose that path, even though I wasn't necessarily like directly exposed to motorcycles that much.
Yep.
So how did you first get into motocross?
So I actually started racing BMX a little bit, and then I probably had to have been 12 or something, and I started racing BMX, and I also rode dirt bikes. I don't even think I had like an XR 100 or something at the time. And I started racing BMX. My parents never went. I would go with my friends to race. And then I had a conversation with my parents, and they were like, well, if, you know, like, they didn't say it, but they're basically like, bicycles are kind of lame. We'd rather you race dirt bikes.
Really nice.
And I was like, what?
That's cool.
Wait,
parents right there. Mostly, usually they go backwards the other way.
That's what I thought. That's why I never bothered to ask anything, you know? And then I had brought that up, and they were like, oh, you know, it'd be way cooler if you race dirt bikes, basically. And I was like, okay, let's do that. So then, we got a KX80, and then we started going to races. The first race, like my parents, the first Supercross or moto or anything I ever saw was 1989. We'd finally gotten cable, and I saw the Houston or Dallas Supercross. Jeff Ward and Jeff Stanton were battling, and then that was the end of it. I was hooked on dirt bikes, and the rest of the time was me in the yard pretending I was racing these guys. So when they actually were like, we'd rather you race, I was like, oh, well, I would rather race dirt bikes as well. So at 13, I started racing dirt bikes, and we knew so little about it that, like, we'd only seen Supercross on TV. We'd never seen motocross, because you got to figure this is 92, 93.
Right.
Which it's hard to find these races online. They're like a week later at 2:30 in the morning or something.
Yes. Yeah.
So we go there and race, and we do our first race, and we're loading up, and the kid that was next to me that was in my class that I'd kind of been talking to, he goes, what happened? Did your bike break? And I was like, no, the race is over. And he goes, you get another race. We didn't even know. We were loading the bike back up to leave.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. That's hilarious. So how you were 13 for your first race, is that right? So what was it like, man? You know, lining up? Were you feeling nervous, or were you just that macho, excited kind of energy?
I'm sure I was nervous. I honestly don't remember as much as I would like to. Now that you brought that up, I've never actually thought. I can remember being there that day, but I don't remember my nerves or anything. But I do remember just being like, you know, you ride trails and stuff, and it's not the same as getting on a prep track that then has deep ruts and then these jumps. I've never even seen anything this tall, you know, so it was kind of just like thrown to the wolves. And I went to Englishtown, which has some fairly big, you know, especially at the time, had some fairly big stuff. Not like it was jumping everything, but even just like the elevator, is just like this tall. It was that the elevator, the staircase, whatever they want to call it, was definitely the steepest, tallest thing I'd gone up to up until that point, for sure.
That's
crazy,
crazy.
man. So you transitioned to freestyle, right? I think what 2000 is that when you made the switch?
Yeah, 2000, 2001. I think maybe late 2000 I'd done a show or something, and then 2001 kind of when.
What drew you to that? I mean, coming from the motocross to the freestyle because it's two different animals.
So I had turned professional racing in 2019 when I
Yeah.
was 19. So I raced professionally. I think 19, maybe a couple, like halfway through the year, I probably was able to get my pro license. And then 2000, 2001, I tried to qualify for nationals. And, just racing for mainly most of my money, I didn't obviously make very much. And then
Gotcha.
as soon as I got offered freestyle, it was like $600 in a hotel room, and I'm like,
Nice.
what? Guaranteed money? I know what I'm gonna get, right off of the bat.
Right.
So it was kind of more so that of just like basically I knew that I could. It was a perfect window. Honestly, it was early enough where nobody was doing anything that crazy, so I was like, oh, I can do some of this stuff. And yeah, I just got in early enough, and there was you only needed a couple of tricks, which I was already kind of doing because I did ride BMX, and I did
Right.
like little tricks on BMX,
So what were you doing? What kind of tricks were you doing at this
just
point?
like knack,
Oh,
can, regular
Mhm.
one-footed can, and just like toboggans, turn your bars, push the front end out, and just stuff like that. But
So when you joined this, did they kind of say, "Hey, listen, we need more," or like what was the conversation like when you once you made that full switch in order to kind of keep moving forward in this?
not even really at that point, because you got to figure this is 2000 probably. So there's really the first contest was just in 98, and they're still doing heel clickers and,
Right.
little stuff like that. So when I was one of this whole thing where basically the guy's track that I rode at, um, he was a ex pro racer, was like top 20 in Supercross and stuff on a 125. The guy that was dealing with, well, Feld now, I don't, SFX or Pace or whatever it was back then. He was doing Cycle Wars, and he was organizing everybody for the Cycle Wars. And then Freestyle had just come out, so they were trying to add that to Monster Jams.
Gotcha.
So they had called the guy whose house that I rode at and wanted, because they were like, knew he was a good jumper. So they said, hey, can you come out and jump and do these shows? And he was older, had a kid, had a business, and he's like, I can't be chasing this stuff around. But I have a kid here that's pro level racer that's already doing tricks. Like I would do my 2 half-an-hour motos, and then I would find the big jumps, and then I would start doing, cans on them and stuff, and no handers and whatever. So he's like, I got a kid here that's pro level, and he can already do some tricks. So 1 week later, I went down and tested the ramps out with him. And then I think maybe like a month later, we started doing some monster jams. But I'm one of the first, probably 5 people to ride FMX at monster jams.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
What was that
So
like?
I
Sorry to
gotta
interrupt you.
ask you, man. I gotta ask you about the first backflip. Take us.
Oh heck yeah.
For guys like myself who've been riding their whole lives, never done anything like that, never even thought about doing anything like that because I think it's insane. But I love watching it. Tell us a little bit about the practice to do something like this. What transpired for you to be able to take that, and take us into that first backflip in front of a huge audience.
So I started actually learning to flip at Pastrana's house.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
But
Circus.
yeah, well, this was prior to even
Yeah.
any of the videos, basically. And that's how, was it? The Nitro Circus video series was born out of this time period because we'd show up, a lot of people would show up to try to learn, and then
Yeah.
Travis would just film people. And a lot of people think that Travis is trying to get people hurt, and I don't think that's the case. I think Travis is so good, he doesn't get that other people can't do this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
He's just like, try this, because he would be able to do it, you know? And I'm like, we're not Travis Pastrana, dude. Sorry.
He
This is
is
probably not going to work.
crazy.
Like, I think his brain goes faster than most people.
Yeah.
Like, and he can break stuff down faster while it's
Right.
happening than the average person. Because some of the stuff he'd try or would tell you to do, you're like, that, I don't even think that's possible.
I think when you say the word thrill seeker, his picture is right there, man.
Yeah.
That man has
Or his X-ray.
crazy.
Well, the whole family is like that. You know, when I was at his house one day, and I'll get back to flipping, but I was at his house and he's like, "Oh, my dad and all of his Marine buddies are downstairs. You guys want to go down? We'll get them into like a contest." And he's like, "Oh yeah, we get on a couple of things." He goes, "Guaranteed they challenge us." So we go down there and we start working out. And within like 5 minutes, we're having, like rowing machine challenges.
Yeah.
And then we would do like, who could bench, you had to stand on the scale, get your weight, and then who could bench press their own weight the most times,
Yeah.
which I came in second in that one. And then I ended up, maybe I won that one. And then planks ended up being me and Robert. Everybody else dropped out. And it's just me and his dad, Robert, sitting there. And then I finally was like, fell to the ground. And he sat there for another minute. He had to have been 55 at the time.
Gosh.
And he sat there for another minute. And we had already
Holy
schooled
cow.
everybody else. So, I mean, that's where he gets it from. The whole family is like a bunch
Gotcha.
of meatheads, like just challenging each
That's
other.
cool, man.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
So
Did they have the foam pit or the airbags or anything back then?
it was just
when
foam
you're-
pit. So that's why I went there. And he had the foam pit in the small one in the garage and then the big one outside. So we went to the big one outside and we were working on flips. And I pulled my first, I want to say first like two came around. And Travis is standing there going, "You're getting around, but it doesn't look good." And he started trying to fix my body positioning. And then I got to a point where I couldn't even flip at all because I'm thinking all these other things.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is not for me. So I just gave it up for probably 6 months or a year. And then I became friends with Chuck Carruthers, who is the guy that did the first body varial at X Games in like 05 or 06. I don't remember. I think 05. And I had access to his pit. So then I started trying to learn again there. And the atmosphere was a little less intense.
Right.
You know, there wasn't so many. They're hard up there. Like, don't go there talking crap because they're calling you out for sure immediately. And like, you better put up or shut up. So, and it's not even like I talked any crap to anybody, but like, it didn't matter. Just the pressure from everybody. And there's so many high level people, they expect everybody to pull everything. And if you don't, it's kind of like a difficult mental, spot to be in. So there was a little bit less pressure at Chuck's and I could there was less people and it was a little calmer. And I learned how to flip there from the super kicker, which was like 9.5 feet tall, and it's like a 70-degree angle versus your regular ramp is about 8.5 feet tall, and it's at a 45-degree angle. And I was so screwed up from the deal at Travis's, I wasn't even sure how to pull. So on the super kicker so steep, I started going at it already like in pull position.
Right.
And it's so steep that just riding off with your butt all the way back, like over your rear fender, I would flip and come in like vertical. But I'm like, okay, at least I'm like getting myself to understand where the pull point is. Then I started riding at it in neutral position. And then when I got in the ramp, go, okay, now get into pull position. So I kind of enforced regular pull position and started doing it that way. Then we got to the big 75-foot ramp. I started flipping in the pit a bunch there. I went home. We had my riding spot was at we had like a horse barn that we would rent out stalls. and all the shavings that they would use for the horse stalls. After, there was a big pile in the back of the barn. So I took
Perfect.
a big tarp and filled the back, put it on the back of in the back of my van, and then filled it with the shavings, all with horse pee and crap and everything.
Say, did that stink? That had to.
And
stink.
I backed up the landing and would shovel enough out that I could pull the tarp out and put it on the landing. So I gave myself about a 6-inch layer of horse crap and pee to land in. And that's where I went to dirt for the first time. And I want to say second day, I did a regular trick, missed my handlebar on the way back.
Oh, shit.
And then ended up like getting bucked onto the front and falling over and bruising my thigh real bad. I measured it with a tape measure. It was 3 inches bigger than my other thigh at one point. So I backed up, and then we were going, this is right around Thanksgiving time. First day I ever flipped was Thanksgiving. So this was probably a couple days after. And so I backed off of flipping because we were going into winter tour, which starts the beginning of January. So I didn't touch flips at all for months. Then, actually, I think that's when I think I originally did it. I learned it at Travis's, went home, flipped, got hurt. No, I had to have gone to Chuck's because that's when I figured it out. Then I don't know, whatever. 6 months, I relearned to flip. That's what it was. I went back to Travis's, and I pulled, went into the pit, and he goes, is your clutch bad? And I go, no. And he goes, could you be engaging it? And I said, yeah, I do leave my finger on the clutch. He goes, do exactly what you did, but take your finger off the clutch. So I took my finger off the clutch, turned around, pulled, went 1.5.
Wow.
Jeez.
So as I was pulling back on my arms, my finger was just barely engaging the clutch, which was stopping my drive off of the top. So I could pull as hard as I wanted, and it would just bring me around. Once I didn't have my finger on the clutch, and I still had drive towards the end of the ramp, because once you get into pull position, your drive is not really pushing you out anymore. It's spinning you. So once I did that, I over-rotated. So now the next 6 months is me trying to convince myself not to yank the bars off of this thing. You don't need to pull that hard to flip. So I had to relearn, like, calm down and just flip easy. And then I went back home, same thing, set my landing up, and then I just flipped basically every day I rode for the next, I don't know how long, just to get it down. And then the first show I ever got booked to flip was in Colombia, South America.
Really?
And I didn't like the setup, and I didn't end up flipping it. And that's the only time I ever went any place that I was supposed to flip and didn't flip. After that, I pulled the trigger everywhere, no matter what the scenario was.
Hey,
Do you
can I
think
ask
it
you a
was a
quick question?
confidence
Oh,
thing?
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, do you think it was a confidence thing and not liking the setup? Like, if you went back to the setup a year later, do you think you'd hit the flip, or was it just that sketch?
That's what I was going to ask.
No, I probably would have flipped it at another point in time, but that was the first time I had gone down there. They had this, it was like scaffolding landing, basically, that they built themselves, and they had this huge expanded metal. They were like this big, like and I'm just like, this thing just looks like a huge grater if I land on it. And I'm like, I really don't want to end up upside down on this thing. The other thing about Colombia is, at least where we were, and I don't remember what city it was, but most of Colombia is pretty high elevation. And their gas, I'm going to say, is probably 75 octane. So all of the bikes run like they're underwater there. You know, it's like nothing's running that good. I figured out later, because they would always measure our jump in meters, which I'm like not very proficient in meters.
Foreign concept, yeah.
And I learned later, I was like, we were only at like 65 feet, maybe at the most. I'm like, these bikes are down on power here. Because we did, you know, I was wide open some of the time. And I'm like, we weren't even jumping that far.
Have you been back there to do anything since then?
I went there like 12 times.
12 times. So what were you doing? Could you bring your own fuel, or you had to use what you had there?
Yeah, so we don't even, they would provide bikes. So I would just show up and ride. I would bring suspension and maybe handlebars and just bolt them onto bikes they had there. The one time I went there and they had rented us a house, and there was a track right down the street. So we're all like gonna go. We put all our parts on the bikes, and we're like, we're gonna ride down to this little motocross track. My bike shut off 5 times on the way down the street, like quarter mile, and I'm like, this thing has an electric problem or something. I'm not riding this. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, it shuts off, and I kick it once, and it fires back up. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm jumping this off of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Jeez.
So that
Nice.
one, I think we had to. The other bike they had, it was like from steel frame to aluminum frame, and my triple clamps, the forks wouldn't fit in the other triple clamps, so I had to swap the whole triple clamps. So then the aluminum frame is wider at the headset, so I had no turning at all. So then I had to sit in the locker room with a file and file the stops down
Oh my God.
on the triple clamp to get the thing to turn enough so I could make a U-turn to come back.
That's crazy.
All right. So next chapter, FMX East. It was a big deal for the East Coast scene. What inspired you to start it?
Just the fact that nobody was calling us to put us in anything, put us, video wise, to put us on any shows, anything like that. So I kind of just picked the ball up myself and was like, well, we can start our own thing over here. And honestly, my thought was, which never happened, eventually freestyle motocross popularity would make its way east, and I would kind of be set up to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And it's not like that. It's just like, if you're not in Southern California, you're not a freestyle motocross rider, you're a dirt hump jumper.
Right.
So that's all that happened is that. So I've said it, if I had done everything I did, even video wise and all that stuff, and been out west, it would have been a different scenario. But the entire industry basically pretends like anybody outside of Arizona, California is basically like, non-existent.
Clint, have we had champion? Sorry for my ignorance. I don't know everything about the moto world, but have we had champions from the East, or is everybody from California?
Well, Travis Pastrana's from Maryland.
Pastrana. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Ronnie Renner's from Florida. Ronnie
Okay.
Feist is from New Jersey.
Okay, cool.
But if you want to talk about pinnacle of pinnacle, I mean, Travis, obviously,
Travis, right.
is, the
Gotcha.
biggest guy to come out of the
Gotcha.
East
All right,
Coast.
cool.
But we definitely have a lot of really good riders come from the East Coast, especially, I mean, they're not like the top of the heap, but like within that first percentage or two, there's definitely some really good, gritty East Coast guys in it.
Gotcha.
So do you have any crazy stories from those early days or fun memories trying to grow freestyle on the East Coast?
Just
I know that's an open-ended question.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the best time for us, or me at least, in the sport was when I was living in Georgia and I had my own riding facility. Or I say facility, it was just a field with a bunch of jumps in it. But because, see, out west, those guys see other people as competition because, I don't know why. I guess because there's more money in it and sponsors and stuff like that. And over here, we're just excited to have somebody else to ride with.
Right.
So like,
Yeah.
in the winter, I would have, and initially when I moved down there and built the course, I was just renting a room from my friend, and it was a small 3-bedroom house, 1 bathroom, and I'd have 13 people sleeping in the living room.
Damn.
That came down from Massachusetts and Chicago,
staying crashing with you.
coming down to ride for like a month or two. So that was, the most fun to me, is just having everybody around. We all progressed because of that, because we're riding together. This guy's doing this trick well, that guy's doing that trick, and just being able to see stuff in person, and knowing people, hanging out with them, jumping the same jump with them, and then being able to see them do stuff brings it down to like a familiar level where it's not the same as just seeing stuff on video or in magazines or something.
Right, for sure. I mean, you've performed on, man, around the world basically. You've been on things like Sturgis, Harley Davidson's 100th anniversary tour. I mean, you've done some cool stuff. Is there one or two that stand out in your mind as far as things that you really appreciated and kind of fell in love with the atmosphere?
Actually, Colombia. I really had a fun time in Colombia. Maybe it was that I went so many times, but I mean, it was, yeah, everybody was nice. I mean, we did a lot of press while we were down there, so that's the only place I got treated like a beetle. You know, we went to the mall and people were like, ah, and I was like, what is going on here?
Right.
But just the scenery, everybody's nice, the food is good. I mean, it was just a fun, place and atmosphere. Even Peru was,
Nice.
well, the first time I went there was really good. The second time this is actually a good story if you want to hear this story.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. Tell us a good story. So go ahead. Great.
Okay, this is about the best one. So, that I can tell publicly. Uh, so I went to Peru the first time and did a show, and then I went back like, I don't know, a year or two later. At that point, the guy that I was working with on booking shows and stuff, he got this call from somebody in Peru, and he keeps trying to set it up, and I keep trying to get him. I'm like, make him give us a big down payment. And he's like, oh, well, they gave us like a small down payment, like $2,600 or something like that, which was nothing for like three of us and everybody to go down there.
Right.
And I even called my friend that got me all the South American stuff, Javier. And I was like, this production company or whatever. And he goes, it's fake. Nobody knows who they are.
Oh, geez.
So then I kept going back to Travis and being like, dude, let's not do this. Like, screw it. Let's just, I don't want to go and, get in trouble or whatever. No. Okay. So we end up going, and we get there. Now the show is supposed to be whatever, we're there on Friday. We show up to the building and we're trying to start loading stuff in. Well, they won't let us in. So then we go back to the hotel and we find out the promoter hadn't paid for the building yet.
Oh, holy.
So the promoter goes back and pays for the building. So then later that day we get in and we're like, okay, we're going to tell them where to set the landing and all that, and they're going to build it overnight. Well, we go inside and they have a bunch of hay bales. So they're like, we're going to, which I guess Travis told them we could do it, place the hay bales in the shape of the landing, and then they're going to cover it with dirt. Well, they have the first Bobcat ever made that they're going to use for this. I mean, it looks like antique, and
Yeah.
so then we find out that the dirt, so you're down in the arena and there's this we're in like the second or third oldest bullfighting ring in like the world or something. It's like 200 years old. So the dirt is, you got to go across the floor, up the tunnel, into the like main hallway there, and then go down and then turn left down into another like little hallway, and that's where the dirt is. So he's driving all the way out with a small Bobcat, which has like half a yard bucket or something.
It's gonna take
and
2 weeks.
driving it all the way back in. So the show's supposed to start at like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock the next day. Our manager guy goes over to the stadium. He comes back and he goes, we're like, well, what's going on? He's like, And we're like, yeah. And he goes, well, the landing isn't done, this and that. People are starting to fill the building. And we're like, oh, good.
Jeez.
So we go over at 2. They have some rap group playing in the stands. They're like entertaining everybody, playing in the stands. Then they have us come, we go and we look, and they're like, okay, well, just the landing's not ready. The takeoff ramp doesn't have any facing on it at all. It's just like a skeleton frame, so you can just see through the face. There's just like crossbars. So they're bringing all the dirt, at this point, the dirt, like you have the hay bales, and the dirt literally just goes like this. And there's just like
Holy
a
crap.
thin strip up the center, which has all tire marks in it. It's super soft, and the hay bales are smushed. And it comes down and it like gets wider at the bottom. So like, will you guys just go out and ride wheelies around for now to entertain them or whatever? We'll get the landing finished. So we go out, we ride wheelies. I have shirts that I'm planning on selling. And I'm basically like, I'm sorry, and just throwing all my shirts into the crowd. I'm like, take these, please. Please take these. So we give away all the stuff. Now, I run into one of the guys that worked for Yamaha that I dealt with the time I was there before. And he's like, I run into him early on in this whole ordeal, and he's like, hey, are you guys going to ride? And I was like, yeah, we're going to ride. And he goes, oh, okay. I run into him about an hour later, and he goes, his literal statement is, it's going to get bad. That's the first thing that he says to me. And I go, I know. I'm trying to figure out how to get out of here. And he goes, oh, so we ride our wheelies around, give all the stuff away. They're like, go back out and ride wheelies. And I'm like, no, not doing it. Because I knew that they wanted to pin it on us. They're going to be like, these guys suck. Look, they can't jump anything. They're just riding wheelies. So I'm like, I'm not going back out there again. So my buddy goes, or the guy that worked at Yamaha, he's like, my friend has a full-size Dodge pickup, which is like the only full-size vehicle I saw in the country the entire time. Jeez. Everything else is like tiny little vehicles. Right. So we walk out of the stadium, and as we're walking out of the stadium, one of the ladies taking tickets, there's this big long line of people standing there. And there's a lady standing there taking tickets, and she starts screaming something. And I turned to our manager guy that spoke Spanish, and I go, what is she saying? He goes, she's yelling fraud and pointing at us because we're walking out.
Shit.
She's going, fraud, fraud, and pointing at us. So we go to get into we're all in the pickup truck. Now, they don't have lines in the parking lot. There's like attendants standing there going, you park here, you park here, you park here. Yeah. So we can't even get the pickup truck out of the spot because there's just cars jammed in around it. So I look, and it's a teeny car next to us. And I was like, hop out. We're moving that thing.
Moving it.
So we hop out, grab the back of it, swing the side of it over, get back into the truck. All of a sudden, there's a news camera stuck inside the window of the truck. No. And they're going, what happened? The manager guy's explaining it's the promoter's fault. The venue's not ready, blah, 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 all this stuff. So we leave. They set up a meeting the next day. Actually, no, the one kid's passport was in his gear bag, which we left in our the guy was driving us back and forth. He left it in the minivan because it was like all the way on the other side of the stadium. And I was like, we're trying to get out of here. I don't want to spend time. I left my gear. I lost all my gear. I was like, it's not worth it. I'm not trying to go over and grab that. So we leave. We set up an appointment with those guys the next day. Maybe it was that evening. But anyway, we went and met with them. So it's me, the other two riders. We have our manager guy and his buddy that allegedly knows local police. So they show up. It's the manager, two big bodyguard guys, and like 3 workers that he had with him. So we're outnumbered by them. Yeah. They line up. We're going back and forth. And the guy that knew the cops, so it's us in a line, them in a line. The guy that knew the cops is behind them, walking back and forth on his phone and will not even look at us. He's just looking down, pacing back and forth on his phone. Jeez. And we're like, okay, well, that didn't help us at all. Nerve-wracking. So we leave that meeting because they were like, how do you want to handle this? And those guys, or our manager goes, well, how do you want to handle this? And the manager, or the promoter goes, we can handle it however you want. Meaning like violence, money, whatever. Yeah. So then they finally say, okay, you owe us half of what we lost. What? So they're like, we lost, I don't remember if they were trying to get 10 or 20,000 out of us. Might have been 20. Wow. So they're like, you owe us half of what we lost. So
you think they planned that from the get-go?
Wait. So we leave, and go to our hotel, and we're sitting in the hotel, and I'm like, I think I think these guys are afraid. And I said, and more of just not getting paid. And as I say that, one of the other guys, the guy that was supposed to know the cops or something, turns the corner and walks in. He goes, yeah, everybody that was seen with you is afraid. The promoter from the time I was there previously had hired a bodyguard to stay with him.
Yeah.
The kid that lost his passport went to the U.S. Embassy and goes there and is like, I'm an American citizen. I want, protection till I leave the country. The guy at the embassy says, well, I guess, he goes, you probably should get a gun then. And he goes, well, where do I get a gun? And he goes, I suppose on the street like everybody else.
Wow.
He goes,
Holy
promoters shoot each other over money all the time. Damn. So we had a appointment scheduled with them noon the next day to go over whatever we were going to do. The promoter kept calling the hotel we were at to make sure that we hadn't left.
Yeah.
So we have a little meeting and they're like, okay, pack all your stuff up, but leave your bags open, leave your room doors open, act like we're just hanging out. When my local friend shows up in front of the hotel, I'll call you guys on your room phone, zip your stuff up, and we'll just head out to another hotel so they don't know where we are. Mm-hmm. So like 1 o'clock in the morning, his buddy shows up. He calls our room. We go filing through the lobby. The guy at the front desk at the lobby, because he'd been called like probably 100 times, was like, oh no, as we're just filing out of the thing. Somehow we got all of our bags and ourselves jammed into this compact car in like 30 seconds. I don't know how we did it. We go to another hotel across town. We stay there. First thing in the morning, as soon as the embassy opens, they go and get his rush passport. They come back to the hotel, grab us. By the time 12 o'clock rolls around, we're in the airport buying tickets to leave.
Nice.
Jeez.
Damn.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Damn. People don't realize how crazy it is in these countries like that.
Yeah.
Where, like, I mean, you really have fucking no rights whatsoever, man.
No. Even the cops, like those guys probably knew the cops or something, which is why that guy was on the phone like even the cops aren't helping you in this scenario. So
yeah.
Damn.
Did you get anything out of Travis? Like, hey, maybe I should have listened to you, or
No, I paid $2,500 out of my own, never got any of the deposit, paid $2,500 out of my own pocket for all of our tickets to get out of there.
Gosh.
So no, I lost out good on that one.
That is a crazy story, man. Holy smokes. Thanks for sharing that with us, man. Appreciate it.
No problem.
That's awesome.
Gosh. All right. So in 2016, you decided to hang up the boots for FMX. Was that a tough decision? Did you have something lined up that you're already thinking about for your next adventure, or what was that like?
No, I thought I would have been in a way better position by the time I stopped riding. But honestly, what happened was I had moved down, I was in Georgia for a while, and then I'd moved to Texas, and I was staying there with he was my business partner at the time, or we had just stopped, I think in 2015 or something, but I was moved down to his place, was renting a room because I was trying to find something by Austin, and I started going to just these local little motocross races, and I ended up crashing out in the lead of like 40 plus or whatever. No need to do anything. Try to jump this triple I jumped in practice. It dried out. I spun up the face. Ended up casing it and getting bucked weird and breaking my tib compound, my tib fib. Broke my tibial plateau and tore my meniscus. Then they had taken me right to a hospital. And I was like, it's like 10:30 at night or something. And there's just some random doctor on, and I'm like, I'm not getting my leg done here. He goes, standard tib fib. And I was like, I don't want this guy touching my leg. Because I'm like, if this thing's screwed back together wrong, I might not be able to move my foot or my toes or anything for the rest of my life. So 2 years prior to that, I had had surgery on my shoulder by a good orthopedic surgeon in Houston. So I called him on the table in the room, like when the doctor left. I call him. I'm like, hey, I broke my leg bad. I want you to fix it. So he said he was drunk at a rodeo. So
Did he say come now or?
Yeah, no, he was like, I'll see you on Monday. He goes, come down and let me assess it.
That's cool, man.
But so then I ended up waiting. It was like over a week by the time I could get surgery, because by the time I got down there, it was so swollen. Then he wanted to order the correct size, plates or whatever to go in. So I'd gotten a bad infection. So about a month after, a couple weeks or a month after having the surgery, all of a sudden the incision on the front of my shin splits open. It's like 1.5 inches wide, and you can see my tendon running by, like when I move my foot. So then I have to go get a skin graft. I'm on crutches for like 6 months. I can't walk. And honestly, it was basically just that made me be like, I couldn't almost deal with anything. So I just walked
Clint, how old are you at this point?
I am 36.
36 at that point. All right. So then the bruises and the pains hurt even.
It's a little
more,
worse.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So that I just kind of stepped away from it. And, because even at the time, there's not a ton of overhead in just booking stuff. Unless you're running the ramps or riding, you're only going to make a couple $100 on a show. Right. On top of what the riders and stuff are making and ramp rental is. So it was kind of like, I would say a lot of it probably was just the fact of how crappy of a position I was in, where I was down there. I didn't really have anybody to help take care of me. I was kind of just like, just trying to survive. Trying to book shows was not even like a blip in my mind.
Right.
Hey guys, the show will be back in 1 minute right after a word from our sponsor.
Hey, One Gang, tired of feeling like your butt's taking more of a beating than your bike on those long rides? Introducing Butt Buffer, the ultimate solution to saddle soreness. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. These cushions are made from medical-grade viscoelastic polymer, scientifically crafted to eliminate pressure points and keep your circulation flowing. No more numb nuts or numb butts. And here's the best part. Butt Buffer cushions are made right here in the U.S. for the last 30 years. From Harleys to Hondas, we've got a cushion to fit your ride perfectly. Plus, with styles ranging from sleek pebble polymer to luxurious sheepskin, there's a Butt Buffer for every rider's style. Get your Butt Buffer today at buttbuffer.com. That's buttbuffer.com. Your butt will thank you, and you'll ride longer and happier. We've got your butt covered.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. So, when did the switch flip for comedy, man? Because I'm interested to find out about this transition. Being a guy that's always been, you've been in the limelight in regards to the things you do on two wheels, but I don't know if, I'll use myself as an example, man, to get up on stage in front of people, man. Even though I have some funny moments here and there, but to keep people entertained, how did all that come about?
So the time I was hurt prior to my leg where I stopped riding, I had I had two like real big injuries right in a row. That was like 2014 probably. Yeah. I blew my shoulder out of the back. It detached my rear deltoid. I blew my rotator cuff like to pieces. I broke my femur. I bruised my kidneys, I think because I peed brown for about a month. Damn. And I don't remember the whole week that we were there basically. And that's the only time I'd hit my head, and later I was like, I'm dumber now. I'm definitely dumber than I was prior to this.
Just starting this whole journey.
Yeah, it was debatable in any other head injuries I'd had, and this one, like, oh, I'm definitely stupid now, for sure. So, and that was in Louisiana. I spent like a week in the hospital. They did surgery on my femur. They didn't want to touch my shoulder because I was going to have to be on crutches. And I'm like, come on, doc, just mess me up. Like, right. Let's just do it all right now. Yeah, exactly. Let me just sit around for 2 months instead of, I healed from the femur, and then I was searching for a doctor that would touch it. Nobody would touch it while I was on crutches. I finally got a hold of my friend Chuck Carruthers, who was like, this guy fixed my shoulder. It was terrible. It used to just fall out making, buttering toast or something. Right. He goes, and he fixed it. He goes, so you got to go to this guy. So by the time I had gotten there, it was, I think, 5 months or something like that, or 8 months. My rear deltoid had been
Just
you know,
off.
detached. So it started to shrink itself back up. He said he had to cut the end of my collarbone to bring my shoulder in enough and stretch the
could
thing. He had to sit
reattach.
there and massage it and stretch it
Wow.
to get it long enough to reattach it.
Gosh.
So, but I was literally in the hospital, and at the end of the week, my shoulder's still screwed up and everything. They just done surgery, and they're just like, I left there in a taxi and just went to the airport and flew home by myself.
Gosh, man.
So then, like I said, months later, I got my shoulder fixed and then started, you know, riding again after that. But yeah, I thought it would have gone a little bit different there towards the end.
Right. So take us into the comedy star. How did
Oh,
that
yeah, that's
come
right.
about? Yeah.
So when I was hurt, I think in 2014, instead of hiring, because I ran FMXE, so I'd book my own shows and I would book everybody. So instead of hiring somebody to replace me as a rider and an announcer, I was like, I'll just announce. So I just started announcing my own shows.
Right.
And I'm like fairly dry all the time. That's how I am in comedy as well. I'm just very dry. And I was announcing these shows and I was just saying stuff that was funny to me, you know, just for myself. And I'm laughing. And I'm looking at the crowd and I realized there's like 2-3 people. It was like inside baseball, like moto jokes, you know, so it was like a very niche.
Right.
Although the
Yeah.
one joke was like, you know, they call them like some of the tricks Indian airs. And I said, oh, we can't call it that anymore. We call it indigenous people airs, you know. And I could catch these couple of people laughing. And that was fun to me. Just like, so then I'm trying to say stuff to get them to laugh. I'm like, let's see if I can get these guys, you know, to laugh some more. And I was like, I could do this. I'm just like in the wrong venue. So
Yeah.
then I started riding again. It was whatever. I was just riding. And then after getting hurt and then not really like having a support system down there, I talked to my parents and they're like, just move back up here. You know, like, we'll just stay. I came up to do that fair show again that I had announced the year before. And they're like, just stay up here. And I really didn't have anything. So I just stayed there.
Right.
And then I started thinking, you know, what can I do that's gonna like scratch the adrenaline itch? As I didn't really, which I now realize like I have a performing itch to scratch as well, but for me it was just like some kind of spikes of adrenaline of being like getting nervous for something. And I listened to a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts, and it was really just he's also a meathead. He's also into sports. Like, it kind of made it like I can relate to him enough where like if he can do comedy, it's not that out of place for me to do comedy either.
Yeah.
You know, because most comedians aren't like that. You know, they're
And his comedy is very similar to what you're talking about. Very dry, just kind of like, you know, pointing things out type of stuff. So
yeah, exactly. So I was like, you know, I don't think it's that far fetched because there are people in the space that are kind of similar enough to me where it's not doesn't seem like a crazy thing. And then being in New Jersey, I'm like, well, if you're going to try and throw your hat in the ring of comedy, being in New Jersey, right next to New York, I mean, would definitely be the best place to try and cut your teeth, because then also if you go anyplace else and you're like, I do comedy in New York and New Jersey, they're like, oh, it's not like I do comedy in Nebraska. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
right, for sure.
So that
So
was it.
take
Then
us-
I started doing open mics. I started 6 months. I didn't tell anybody what I was doing because I didn't even want anybody I knew to be in the room to have to worry about them. And just, just went by myself, started writing stuff and just working on my, you know, comedy, and tried to, you know, perfect jokes and get them, a little bit better and find out what my like space in that was.
Do you remember the first time, just you said that it's something you wanted to try. But do you remember, like, what was your first action? Did you just go to open mics and
Yeah.
consistently keep doing stuff like that, or did you take us a little bit into the first time you got on stage in front of people actually coming to a comedy show?
So yeah, I just started doing open mics. The first one was down in Hoboken at some bar, and it started as a music mic. So there was some musicians there as well. But then for some reason, he just increasingly got comedians.
Gotcha.
So yeah, the first time I went, I remember going and getting a couple laughs. And the second time, I don't know why, but I just was like, I'm gonna just try and be offensive. And I did, like I had this joke about being mad at addicts because they're doing all the good drugs. Like I got hurt and they gave me Tylenol 3. And this guy's got a 5-year-old back injury. He's getting,
Oxys.
Oxycontin. Exactly. I'm like, what is going on? But the way I told it was a little different, and it seemed like I was more mad at. It was a good lesson, that one, because it was like I got a reaction out of the whole bar. By the time I was done, everybody was quiet because there were people playing pool in the backside of the bar or whatever.
Right.
The whole pool table stopped. All the pool games stopped. And there were just several people there with their mouths open staring at me. And I was like, not exactly the response I was looking for, but it still gave you like a charge just getting that like prominent of a response from the whole room and having everybody get quiet and be like, what is this guy saying? But that's when I realized you have to spin the stuff where you're almost like the victim with everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like I'm mad at the addicts because I am in need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did it take you a little time to find a rhythm to kind of balance all that, like to be able to take the crowd? I mean, going back to what you were talking about with the Joe Rogan podcast, right? He always has comedians on, guys that he's come up with in the business or guys coming up. And when he talks into the question about like how they first started out or their first time on stage, everybody's like, man, I sucked.
Yeah.
I would have booed myself off the stage myself.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that. I mean, any funny moments like this that you, as far as hecklers or anything like that you got approached by that you had to handle?
Yeah, later on, I would say, where sometimes hecklers are a gift. I did a bar show and the guy was drunk at the corner of the bar, and it was like I was trying to stop mess with him, but everything he said was gold. And I was like, it's just you're giving me too much material right now. I can't leave you alone. Yeah. But I've definitely had some, especially early on, people even talking in the room is very distracting when you're trying to just remember punchlines and stuff. So, I mean, I'm sure that I was, not good in the beginning. I do know that first time I did get a couple of laughs, which was probably the encouragement I needed to not be like, I'm completely horrible at this right off of the bat. But yeah, it's definitely just like learning how to spin your jokes, learning how to say things that could be offensive to a lot of people, but place it in a way where it's like not totally just directly, you know what I mean, offensive to everyone. But
hopefully with this change now and people getting a little bit less sensitive, we went through that long period of everybody's offended and hurt by something or another. So hopefully our society can get back into it's just a joke. Relax, man. Like nothing's offensive, man. It's just a joke. Who did you grow up listening to? Like, who were your guys that you enjoy listening to?
So that's the thing. I wasn't really a huge comedy person. I never was. Yeah, it's not like I knew, as a kid, I knew all the standards that everybody knew, right? Yep. George Carlin, I loved. Kennison in the when he was young.
Yeah, Kennison was shit, man.
Richard Pryor, exactly. And those are even, which I didn't really, I knew of Carrot Top, but I wasn't like huge Carrot Top fan. Although I had seen some of his stuff, and he is funny with all of his props. He's very funny, and of course the Gallagher
with the watermelon smash.
Exactly. So that's all. I wasn't like super deep in it to where I would know all these. I do have to say, Doug Stanhope, my roommate that I lived with in Georgia, loved Doug Stanhope.
Yeah.
And he loved, there was somebody else that he was going on about, the guy that smoked the cigarettes that I can't think of now.
Cigarettes or
Oh, Dice Clay.
Well, Dice, but it wasn't Dice. It was, I cannot remember the name, but he's another like Doug Stanhope type, like a little, didn't get commercial success, but like
Right.
very big underground. Mitch Hedberg.
I was
And
gonna say Mitch Hedberg.
and there was another guy that smoked the cigarettes that I can picture him, but I can't think of what his name is. But
I grew up in Boston, so Stephen Wright was
Yeah.
man, that guy was a trip. I don't know if
there's
you
so
ever listened
many
to his.
there's so many amazing people, like it's in anything, motocross, freestyle motocross, comedy, music. There's tons and tons of people that are like talent wise
Right.
as good as anybody, and for whatever reason they just didn't put all the pieces together, to become that big.
Right.
But
right.
yeah, I was exposed to the standard comedy that we all, would see on TV, but I wasn't really like a huge just seeking out comedy and absorbing it all the time.
Right,
I think
right,
it was
gotcha.
more so just like I wanted to do something that had a thrill that would allow me the opportunity to travel and not have a lot of employees or overhead.
That's the right spot.
Makes
Then
sense.
it's a good gig. So you've emceed live shows in Jersey, Vegas, bike rallies, and events. What's your approach to hyping up the crowd of motorcycle fans while mixing in your comedic style? Do you go straight in for the laughs, or do you go hype first, or how do you find your style now?
I'm not a good hype man, I would say. I need to probably get a little bit more excited for stuff. But, I'm more just, like I opened up for the Pulp MX show, and I had a whole set of jokes written because they have a lot of inside jokes and stuff on the podcast. And I basically had a whole set written out for all of their inside jokes and what was going on with the industry at the time. So I would say, I'm a little bit probably more just straight for the comedic value part of it.
Right on. Cool. So you've also kind of moto meets movies sort of. You've done stunts, commercials, and you were in Bro. Do you ever watch those clips and think, what was I even thinking or doing that? You smile at a clip and relive it. What is it kind of surreal to see yourself on TV?
So Bro didn't really make it to TV. That was kind of like I don't even know, you might be able to find it on Prime or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on M80 on Fuel TV and Discovery Channel on How It Works, I think How It Works and stuff.
How it works. Yep.
And that is, it's definitely surreal to see yourself on. It's like, I don't think that way anymore about videos and stuff that I put out, because we've been putting stuff out for a long time. But yeah, when somebody else sees enough in you to be like, we're going to put you on this thing and expose it to a lot of people. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And then you have random people going, or like friends, they're like, I saw you on TV the other day, which is really weird. But
yeah, that's got to be crazy.
Yeah, it's I'm
What
like
was your favorite project that you had to do that kind of made the screen that you enjoyed working on?
Well, I would say probably doing the peg grinds on M80 on Fuel TV. So basically, we were already making a DVD, FMXE Staking Our Claim, because it was like the first one from anybody over here for the most part. And my camera guy started looking, he found an ad that was like Fox Sports TV, channel looking for extreme sports footage or whatever.
Yeah.
So he contacted them and was like, I work with freestyle motocross guys, and that was Adam Barker. And Adam's like, well, send us some footage so we can see, you know, what you got going on. And he's like, oh, you got actual real freestyle guys over there.
Right.
So he says, okay, to give you segments, you have to do one segment that's a first that nobody else has ever done. My camera guy was a BMX rider, and he's the one that came up with, he's like, we need to make pegs for your dirt bike, and we can do, you know, like rail grinds. And he goes, basically, you got to do this so that we can get segments on M80. Otherwise,
Right.
they're like, this is part of the deal. So I was like, okay, you know, it sounded fun. So that was a cool project just to try and
Nice.
figure out how to do it. And then we put them on. I did it on like a piece of just a cast iron pipe that my friend had. And then we found out that somebody else had done some peg grinds like 2 years earlier. So to, you know, air quotes, be the official first one, we had to go and do an existing handrail. So my camera guy, once again, lived in Philadelphia, and he knew of some park in the city that had like a short rail that was like 20 feet long.
Right.
So I made a little teeny wood takeoff ramp that was way too steep. In hindsight, I should have made it less steep.
In hindsight.
And we went to, I actually took a hoodie and wrapped it around my exhaust pipe. And then I made this baffle for the back, a Gatorade can, and put foam in it and drilled a bunch of holes and put it on the end of my muffler. Because we did this at like midnight on like a Tuesday or something. And I think luckily for us, it happened to be raining, which I think deadened the sound. But we went out to the park and set it all up, and I grinded an actual real rail that was already in existence. So technically, I'm the first person to do a handrail on a dirt bike, on a 250cc
That's cool, man.
dirt bike.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that was cool. I still now periodically will have somebody be like, we need to do more rails or whatever, you know, moto guys. So that's funny.
Hey, you're doing a podcast now. Take our listeners a little bit about to what your podcast is about and what kind of guests you get on, things like that.
Okay, so I actually do a couple. I am co-host of the Pit Pass Moto podcast, which that's done by a big podcast production company actually owns that.
Okay.
So for that one's more motorcycling in general. So we've had people from gear companies, adventure touring companies, people that make bags for adventure touring, you know, so it's more a little bit, we have riders on periodically as well, but it's a little more like catch-all industry podcast.
Cool.
My co-host does event marketing, and she is also a motorcycle license like instructor in Ohio and stuff.
Cool.
And then the other one that I produce too, so I have the Two Wheels to Freedom podcast, which is basically more so just freestyle motocross stuff. I'll watch old freestyle motocross contests and stuff and talk about, you know, the progression since then, or, you know, a lot of times it's cool to watch and reminisce over like tricks people were doing at one point in time that aren't done anymore, or just how things evolve. I'll do interviews on that one. And then I also, for the Crusty Demons of Dirt guys, who basically anybody that's in the freestyle motocross, genre knows that Crusty Demons basically invented the whole sport, you know, period. So it's actually obviously super cool to be able to work with them. I produced the Crusty Demons podcast. So we've had Brian Deegan on recently. We had Cam Sinclair, who has won gold medals at X Games doing double backflips.
You practicing your comedy also while you're doing all this stuff?
With those guys, I slip in jokes every once in a while. But on the Two Wheels stuff, we get a little more. I try to be respectful because they got big names on there and stuff, so I try not to throw. And there's Dana and John and the guests, so there's a lot going on already.
Understand.
Yeah.
So you can't like interrupt too much. But
Are you still working on your craft on the comedy side? Is that something that you've? Do you stay on? That
I
consistent,
haven't.
Or
I have not for the last probably year, and it's only because there's a lot going on, and to be able, I am generating money with the Krusty guys, so I'm like trying to put my efforts in to build that up. And like I said, ideally, hopefully, one of these shows would get to the point where, in conjunction with a Supercross or X Games or something like that, we could do some kind of live shows.
that'd be killer.
So that's kind of, maybe a little bit down the
Understand.
road. But, yeah, I think it's just bandwidth of attention.
Right.
I've got to kind of narrow it down at the moment.
Right.
Because it does,
Understand.
for comedy, it is a lot of getting up first thing, writing out a bunch of stuff, trying to parse out what you think is, funny, or
Right.
actually, I write a lot of my stuff where just I'm driving or doing something and I think of something, I go, oh, that's weird or funny or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, that's a good subject. Because it's, I just get the inspiration of like looking at something from a weird perspective that you don't normally. And then you go, huh, that is weird. I wonder why that is.
So you've always been an observer?
Yeah, I honestly, and a lot of the jokes that I had said those sayings for years. And I can't think of one right now, but there's a lot of things that like little statements that I've always
Right.
made
Throughout your life.
that like turned into like a joke. And I'm like, I've always kind of been in this thought pattern, for a long time.
funny.
So, and even my videos, we put 2 DVDs out, and both of them have like just weird interludes in between segments. And the second one was called Gaps and Grills, where I was like a freestyler poking fun of freestyle motocross people that were also rapping, and then like pretending I was gangster and stuff, which now makes way more sense now, looking back at it, going, oh, like I was kind of in the comedy realm a little bit then already.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's funny.
Before I was like, these are random. This is very random. And now I'm like, oh, I get where that came from now.
That's right.
Man. So you've had such a diverse career. We read that you went back into Harley Davidson stunt work. Is that true?
Yes, sir. I have a 2015 XG 750 that somebody used for flat track. And actually I have even, which I tell people this all the time. It's got a full-on race motor in it. Here's the dyno before
The
and
dyno
after.
sheet?
Yeah.
That's cool that you got that with you, man.
Well, it's on the back of it's on the back of my title or something.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, yeah, they gave me this with it. So, yeah, I lucked out. I found you're going to love this. I found my landing ramp, which is a 3-car hauler trailer. It's like a 89. I found that on Facebook Marketplace. I found my XG 750 on Facebook Marketplace. I basically bargain shop my whole jump setup
That's okay.
from Facebook Marketplace. But yeah, so I have friends that, obviously still do freestyle motocross and sell shows. And I knew that the market wasn't really being touched at the moment. So I'm like, let me, I've put years and years and years and years into jumping motorcycles. I'm like, and now we're going from trying to do flips and hang off the back to just jumping straight, albeit it is heavier. But, it's like Liam Nielsen. I have a very specific
Particular set of skills,
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That I'm like, this is not that crazy for me to do.
How's the body feeling, man, on the lands?
I beefed up the suspension, so it's not too
No,
bad.
I'm talking about your body.
I know.
From all
Well,
the
the
shit that you went
suspension. Well, really, yeah, exactly. The suspension does take the brunt of it. My left leg from the broken tib fib and then the infection, my left knee was giving me a hard time for quite a while, years. Actually, I just kind of got over that hump over the last like year and a half. But my wrist, I got a bad wrist. I broke my navicular
Yeah.
or scaphoid, whichever time period you're in and what they're calling it at the moment. And that is actually, I think I broke that in probably 2002. And that is still my most nagging thing that I have. Like, it's just a pain. I don't have that much motion in the wrist. So that's why I was like, yeah, we're definitely going to beef up these forks here and try to make it as plush as possible. But yeah, I mean, it's a little hard, but it's not, you land on the gas, you can take care
Clint,
of a little of that.
which wrist? I'm sorry, you might have said which
Yeah, my
wrist is it?
throttle.
The left? The throttle. Shit.
This is how much it moves.
Shit,
gosh.
dude.
So I'm a chicken winger.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Damn.
I run like almost no play on my throttles
You
too.
are crazy, man.
My throttles are like, as soon as you touch it, it's twisting the gas.
Yeah. So your tib fib and infection leg, you mentioned your meniscus also. Is that the same leg?
Yeah, all at once. I did
All at once.
Okay,
I did my,
was the same. All right.
it was just one crash. I did tib fib, came through the side, then I did my tibial plateau, so right where your knee sits on top of it, and tore my meniscus all at the same time.
All in the same
So
leg.
they
Holy
did all of
crap.
them at once. They did a plate in my shin, a plate in my knee, and did my meniscus all in one surgery.
Good grief. You've unintentionally become very aware of anatomy through your whole journey.
Yes, I'm very aware. And rehab and nutrition and, like I've basically submersed myself into those other things to be like, try to get myself back to a position where I can, I'm a active person. I just went and played hockey yesterday and the day
Good for
before, and my wife and I go snowboarding. So it's like,
Nice.
I've been told not to do things, and I'm like, yeah, well, how about we just try to build ourselves up enough that it's not an issue.
You can still live your life. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We have one more question before we roll into the speed
Sure.
round, and that is based on advice. With your experience in sports entertainment, what advice would you give to a young up-and-comer, whether it be on the track or the stage?
Get in with people that are better than you and try to learn from them no matter what it is. Being exposed to people that are good in something is always going to help you.
That's right.
And two, because I think I was a little hard-headed when I was young, look for advice and people to get advice from, and treat everybody good, and just try to be friendly with everybody, talk to everybody, because in all of these things, the both of the niches are very small, and this is for most stuff across the board.
That's right.
And you might not think about one interaction with somebody, but down the road, you never know which
Yep.
position they'll be in, you'll be in.
Yep.
So it's really good to just try and be cool with everybody, and and I'm cool with everybody, but I'm not super like, if you have a conversation with me, I'm cool, but I don't go and talk to other people. I'm not like super outgoing.
Yeah. Extroverted.
Yeah, and it's more so
I
just
can't
like,
even believe that, man. Like, all the shit that you do, and like for you to say that, that's like.
it's funny though, that's the truth. Unless we're having a conversation, we're talking about something like this. We're talking about things that I know well, which not even just me, but if we were talking about dirt bikes or motorcycles or something, I know those aspects pretty well. And I'm just not good at just coming up with random conversation to talk to everybody.
Gotcha.
And I
Yeah.
think that's just a little bit of, from being maybe by myself a lot when I was alone. And I think that's kind of, I just wish I was a more personable person, or just like you said, extroverted and went out of my way to try and talk to people. And I think a lot of people take me as like being an asshole or standoffish, but it's more so just me being like
'Cause you're introverted and quiet.
more shy than it is me
Well,
not wanting to
and
talk
it all
to
goes
people.
back to what we just said
Yeah.
earlier, observing. You're basically on your comedy. You kind of sit back, observe what's around
Yeah.
you, see the surroundings, and then you can make conversation out of that stuff. And that's a good trait to have. Sometimes people that are too much are just too much.
Yeah,
You know,
but I
and
wish
it's
I was a
like-
little more.
Yeah, you're pretty darn good, man. I don't know how you can even say that, but I get it. I get it. But what do you before we finish up? What do you got going on now? Anything for our listeners to kind of check into for us to follow?
Yeah, so either my name, just Clint Esposito, on YouTube, Instagram, or Two Wheels to Freedom on either one, YouTube and Instagram. And also any of the Krusty Demon stuff right now that's going up. I have the pleasure of, when we were trying to make our plan of what we could put up, because all the Krusty videos, you know, they own the footage, but a lot of we don't have rights to the songs and stuff. So I was
Right.
trying to come up with how do we grow the YouTube and how do we make it, you know, a viable source of at least a little bit of revenue and grow it.
Sure.
And there's another guy, Dave Dawes, who is putting up all these old raw videos from like the 90s and 2000s of
Nice.
freestyle motocross. So I convinced the Krusty guys to go through all their old mini DV tapes and hard drives
Yeah, good
and give
call.
me all their old footage. So for me, going through Jeremy McGrath at Guy Cooper's place from like 96 when I
Right.
was, you know, like a 16-year-old kid is like a epic dream for me to see all
Yeah,
the
I
behind
bet.
the scenes of all these
right.
guys
So cool.
and the scenes that I know already anyway. So
Right, all your heroes growing up as a kid who you followed, and now being able to see that again, just
Exactly.
brings back so many great memories. Of course, man, that's awesome.
exactly.
That's-
So
that's
check out
awesome.
if you're into freestyle motocross, especially kind of old, little bit older stuff. Go to Krusty Demons, or it's official Krusty Demons on YouTube. And yeah, we're doing podcasts. Like I said, we had Brian Deegan on there. We've had a bunch of big name guys, and we're working on some more. So
Clint, we're gonna link everything to the show
Oh,
notes,
awesome.
so they can just go directly from there. So that's awesome, man.
cool.
All right, well, all right, my man, you ready to? We got. If you think jumping and doing backflips is tough, wait till you get to the speed round questions now, man.
All right.
So, all right. So we'll have some fun. We put 2 minutes on the clock. Got 15 questions for you. No right or wrong answer. And we'll start now. If your bike could talk, what's one thing it would nag you about?
Washing it.
That's a good one. I like that, man. What would be the absolute worst superpower to have while riding?
Being able to tell what any internal parts are doing.
Okay. That's
I already
good.
am like listening for stuff. Is something going wrong?
Right. That's good, man. What is the best motorcycle you've ever owned or ridden?
That's a difficult one. I'm gonna go with some 90s CR 250 two
Two
strokes.
strokes, of
Yeah.
course, of course. If motorcycles didn't exist, what weird hobby would you be known for?
That's a good question. I don't know how weird it would be. I don't know. I guess I'd be probably riding bicycles.
All right. Well, I would say probably like the world's most known promoter, man. Like, you know, like at the shows and shit. The guys,
Yeah.
those guys have a lot of balls, man, to keep that crowd, you know, big crowd like that going. I mean, I've always admired that stuff. But what's your guilty but go-to pleasure for alcoholic beverages? And if you don't drink, what's your go-to snack?
So I like tequila.
Tequila. All right, we're just talking about that, too.
And the other, so we used to do Supercross after parties in Atlanta when I lived down there, and we'd always have a bunch of people at our table, and I'd always be like, you'd get vodka, something else, and then I would get a bottle of tequila, and they would go, nobody drinks tequila, and I go, I do, and that's the point, because nobody would drink my bottle. I would have my own bottle to myself because
Nice.
nobody wanted to touch it.
Tequila's nice, man. It's clean. It's, I mean, obviously you got limitations because
Yeah.
There's a reason they call it tequila.
Yeah.
So,
but if you get a nice brand, yeah, exactly. It's nice and kind of like
absolutely,
just
you
light.
sip it and it's so clean. Yeah, no
Yeah.
question. What's the most underrated piece of gear every new rider should consider?
I was gonna say gloves because I would rather ride with no boots on than no gloves. But that's
Agreed. I like gloves too.
I
can't
think
ride without them.
the other thing, especially if you're new, knee pads, because I can't tell you how many times I've caught a heel, and this is obviously dirt, not necessarily road,
Right,
but
of course.
dirt. You catch a heel and then just jack your knee into the bolt on the bottom of your perch or something. It's the worst.
It is good. That's good advice right there. If you could get up on stage and sing or jam with one band, who would it be?
Again, not a singer. I don't like to sing.
It's
at
okay. Let's just say jam or even dance with them. I don't know.
all. If I'm singing or dancing, I'm too drunk to do either. So somebody come and get me.
You got any
That's
bands
a
that
one-liner.
you follow?
Yeah, it would probably be something older. I don't know. I think maybe like, and it's not necessarily a favorite, but just given the time period, like Leonard Skinner back in the day, I
nice.
bet that would have been,
Yeah, that's
you know,
great,
in their heyday. I bet that would have been a fun time.
fun time. No question about that. If you could recommend one book, film, or a documentary to every motorcycle enthusiast, what would it be?
Fresno Smooth.
Fresno Smooth. Okay.
Have you ever heard of Fresno Smooth?
No.
You need to
No.
watch it. You're going to be blown
right.
away.
I'm
So
gonna
the
make a note
same
of that
guy,
right now.
the same guy that did M80,
Yeah.
Adam Barker, he's the guy that made Fresno Smooth. So short story. Fresno Smooth was originally funded by Fox. They were one of the funders, and I was at home. I got the Fox catalog. I ran inside. I looked through it. I saw this movie, Fresno Smooth. I called. Now, it literally came to the mailbox, and I walked inside and called to order this video. And they're
Right.
like, it's discontinued. And I'm like, what do you mean? I literally just got the catalog. When you see the movie, you will find out why it abruptly got discontinued.
All right, cool. Thanks for definitely gonna check that out.
Yeah.
You wake up with the voice of a cartoon character. Which one do you hope it is?
That's a good question. Probably huge. Did Inspector Gadget talk? I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, of course. All right, Inspector. That's a
Sure,
good one.
Inspector Gadget.
All right, that's good. Best place you ever rode and why?
Just ride California.
Yeah, California. You talking about the Pacific Coast, or are
well-
you talking about in the desert?
Not necessarily the desert, but just like Temecula.
Okay.
You know, like all the wine hills and all that, and just because for me, again, growing up watching all those videos like Krusty and stuff, we don't have anything like that here.
I know.
So to go out there and then see how actually steep the hills are and big they are, and there's basically like you could take a shovel and shovel a face into almost anything and be jumping, it's and just I think it's a combination. Terrain is awesome, but also just my reference point with it, watching the videos and seeing all those guys in the hills. So I think it's probably a little bit of
That's cool.
selfishness as well.
Okay, no, but that's your passion. So I mean, it's great. You know exactly what to do, and so it's awesome. What's a common maintenance mistake that even experienced riders sometimes make?
When you put your forks back together, okay, on a dirt bike, the one side is floating. So you got to make sure you have your nut side, and the other side is supposed to float inside the fork arm. And a lot of people will tighten those pinch bolts down and then tighten it in, and it squeezes your forks together. It ends up wearing out your wear bushings in there. You got to try to tighten the nut on the axle, suck it all the way through, and bounce the front end so that it gets your forks to straighten themselves out, and then tighten your pinch bolts.
All right, motocross listeners, you got some great advice right there
Yeah.
from a pro. So
Pro tip.
that's awesome. Thanks for that. That we've never had anybody really get so detailed. So it's,
Well, I work
so
as a
it's awesome.
mechanic a couple days too. So.
All right,
And that's
cool.
why I was saying when I ride, I'm listening like, is that a power valve eating itself? What
right,
is going
right.
on? Which sometimes, I get thinking too much about what the inner workings of my motorcycle when I'm trying
Yeah,
to
but
ride
that's you do some crazy stuff with bikes. So for you,
I know, but
every sound makes it makes you think about other things. So
which isn't necessarily good all the time.
no, it could be right. That's true too. If you could time travel, which era would you visit and why?
Ooh. I kind of want to go to Rome when it was, like the
Back in
place.
the AD days.
Yeah, and let's see, like, I really love old, just like old America or just history in general,
Right.
and just being in places and thinking of people 1,000 years ago or whatever,
Yeah.
what they dress like, and just society operating as it did back then, and just even from, I think, from traveling so much, it's really like, what are the cultural differences? Because that's being able to travel so much. I realized that just like we always go, this is how you do it. No, that's how you do it there. But people other places are doing stuff totally different. And I just like being able to go to different areas and cultures and just seeing how they, it works then. And I imagine
course.
Yeah.
going that far back and being like, I guarantee you'd be blown away by some of the sophistication that they had that we don't think
yeah.
that they had.
Absolutely,
Definitely.
man. That back in that, I mean, shit. Now we have computers that help do this and do this kind of math and do these calculations for this.
Yeah.
I mean, back then those guys, their intelligence levels were off the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, to design the shit that they designed, that still to this day is still standing up.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
And
When
that's
you go to all these countries.
the thing with our society, right? If we crumble, there's going to be zero left for you to even find from us, because everything's made of junk and it's just going to
Yeah.
deteriorate and be
That's
gone.
right.
So like
Disposable. Everything's disposable.
we will be starting over from caveman era, because there's going to be
Agreed, man.
no knowledge saved from this
Agreed,
era on
brother, I
floppy
agree.
disks and computers and whatever
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. All right. Here's a good one for an Italian boy. Last dinner ever. What would it be?
Ooh, my mom's not Italian, but she has
She's not. Okay.
she has my grandma, my dad's mom's lasagna recipe, and makes that
Okay.
lasagna. So that
Killer.
would be homemade lasagna would be
Okay.
the
Nice.
move.
Good.
All right. Good one. What's the best prank you've ever pulled on a fellow rider? I'm sure being with the boys on all these shows and trips, you guys had to have goofed on each other all the time. So
I know. The problem is I have a terrible memory from smashing my
Oh,
head, but
all right. How about? All right, we'll skip that one. That's all right. All right. Besides the podcast that you do and the One Gang Worldwide podcast, what are your other favorite podcasts you listen to? Excuse me.
so like I said, I listened to the Joe Rogan show, which
Me
is
too.
basically that was kind of the only podcast I listened to actually for a fairly long time. And I like the Pulp MX show, which is like a 4-hour long motocross show Monday nights. So they have all the biggest, like racers, retired racers, and they just
Nice.
go over, it's basically like, our sports center.
Right.
Or if you will, because they actually review the race and stuff like that. And there's not really a ton of that in the motocross space. So I would say there's more coming, but as far as like a race review podcast, they definitely do it the best and have the best structured show, and it's very entertaining. So
Awesome.
that's basically, I watch hockey and
Me
dirt
too.
bike
Who's
stuff.
your team?
Rangers.
Who's your hockey team? Rangers. All right, Bruins.
How about you?
fan here.
Bruins? Oh,
Yeah,
no.
Hey, we're both struggling a little
Yeah,
bit here,
yeah,
man,
for
so-
sure. Right now,
So,
my
hey,
wife is a Devils fan, so when
Devils
we're
fan?
doing bad,
Oh,
I jump ship
no.
to the Devils.
okay. Okay.
No.
I kind of have a little soft spot for the Devils compared to all the other New York teams, but
So she's like, "How are you not a Devils fan?" And I placed it that when I was little and got into watching hockey was the Devils' green and red era,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is the worst uniforms ever in hockey. And I think I just
Fair.
could not take it and was like,
Right.
I don't want to root for the Christmas trees.
How
Okay?
old are you?
I'm out of here. I'm 45.
45. So you were still a young kid during the 94 season, right? 94,
Yep.
95 when the
Yeah.
Rangers won that cup.
Yeah, I was
So-
14, 15.
14, yeah. So that's cool. So that's kind of like what, yeah. I just wanted to you completed it, man. So you made it in a minute and 59 seconds. So
Oh,
congratulations
just
on that.
barely.
We have a prize coming to you. We don't know when it'll arrive, but let us know when you get it.
Okay.
And no, but in all sincerity, man, we just wanted to kind of just say I'll speak first on my end. Thanks for taking the time, man. Awesome to get to know you. You've had at 45 a pretty wild career that's still you're going into other chapters, which is awesome and inspiring. So for anybody who's listened to this show and this podcast here, it never stops, man. When you're a dreamer, you just continue dreaming and doing the things you love to do. So we're big fans now, man. We're going to follow you, follow your podcast and follow the things that you do and wish you nothing but success going forward.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on and listening to all my stories.
That's cool.
I'm sure you got more. We want to hear all of them. Maybe we can have you back one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Clint.
All
That was
right.
great.
Thanks, Clint.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. And have a great year. Have a great, healthy
Yeah.
year.
Thank you guys.
All right, buddy.